Welcome back to the shop. I'm Jason, and today we are continuing on with the interior change-up on my 2002 BMW 540. This is Project Black Pearl, and what we're doing is we are converting or making the interior look more like the M Sport. It's kind of a half conversion and a half DIY. And I say that because the headliner that I got was out of a 2003 M Sport, and it's the black, I don't know what the color of the fabric is called other than it's black, but it's not exactly black because the fabric that I bought is black and it's just slightly darker. So maybe it's a slate or an anthracite or I don't know what it is. But it turns out I thought this car had M Sport pillars in it already from the previous owner, but instead what it had was he had rewrapped them, and he wrapped right over top of the gray fabric that was there before, which didn't actually lend itself to longevity. You're not supposed to wrap fabric on top of fabric, at least as far as I've found. And so I've got some peeling and things coming apart. Up front, I have some discoloration in the A pillars that I really am gonna be happy to get rid of. And I've already wrapped 3 of the pillars. I wrapped the A, B, and C on the passenger side, and it came out fantastic. This is the first time I've ever done this, so there's quite a bit of a learning curve. And as we wrap the next 3 for the driver's side, I'll explain what I learned. One of the things that I found that was of pretty big importance is when I bought the car, the B pillars on the 5 Series have these automatic adjusting seatbelt height. Well, this will not move with the tension from the cable. And there's good reason for that. It's because they took the adjusting plate out here and they wrapped it in fabric, as you can see on the backside, which makes it very difficult to slide. So what I'm doing is I'm cleaning all the glue off, and then I am painting them with interior fabric paint. This is the SEM color coat that I'm using. And I've also, because I bought interior M Sport panels, but I didn't get the rear lights, I finished these off with this satin black color coat paint or interior paint, and they turned out really, really nice. So I'm pretty happy with the way this came out. It could look better, and in fact, I might go buy a set of B pillars at a junkyard so that I can get some undamaged sliders. The slider has some imperfection in it because it had a bunch of glue attached to it, and as I was ripping it apart and cleaning it with acetone and everything I could to get the glue off, it left some, I don't know, it's not discoloration in the plastic because it's painted, but it just left some funny bumps in there. I don't think you'd really notice them in the car. So one of the interesting things here with this job is the perception. I thought it was going to be really difficult. I thought it was going to be really expensive, and I thought it was going to take a long time. Oh, little crack there. We're still good though. And I thought I was going to break everything. So far, I've been able to salvage everything that has any cracks in it. This plastic does get weak with time. But let's talk about cost for a second. The paint was pretty inexpensive. I think it was like 15 or 20 bucks. I'll have links to everything down below. The headliner adhesive, same thing, 15 to 20 bucks. The material that I bought was actually $22 a yard, and it does have a very light foam backing on it. This piece is glued on here pretty well. And that helps with the texture and the appearance. But I got lucky because when I was getting the material cut, they're like, oh, this is on sale, 40% off. So I got 2 yards of this material for almost half price. So all told, for the parts to wrap all the pillars, the paint, the glue, the fabric, I'm going to be in under $60, I believe, which is pretty darn good, I think. Now, obviously, if I was trying to rewrap the whole headliner, it would cost quite a bit more because I'd have to probably get an additional 3 yards of material just for the headliner, and I'd need a foam-backed material or a much thicker foam-backed material than what I'm using here. There we go. Once you get this actually peeling, it'll come off. We've got to make sure to get this clip off of the top here, not lose it. This is the backing for our airbag little plug, and this is what screws the pillar in at the top, especially if you have broken clips, like 99% of the people out there are going to have these clips broken. Another good reason to pick these guys up cheap at a junkyard, because nobody wants the gray ones, but you can recover them fairly simply, as we have found today. So before I get going too far, this didn't crack all the way through, so I'm just going to spread the crack.
Did you really just say that?
And I've been doing this anywhere I find cracked plastic. I'm just throwing a little bit of super glue in it, and I'll give it some time to dry while I'm working or cutting my material. Getting the fabric on here will also help give it a little more rigidity, and we'll be fine. Not really something to worry about there. So there's not much other prep that I've been doing to these. They have a little bit of fuzz on them, a little bit of glue from before. I got to get the super glue off my fingers. But that's it. Now we can lay out our material. See if any of my offcuts will fit. I don't think so. We'll find where I've been cutting all my pieces from. You can see I'm going to have quite a bit left. I probably only needed a half a yard or so, but the very first piece of material that I cut and tried to glue, I messed up. That was this piece here. I managed to salvage half of it, and you can see the glue stuck to the back. What I found out is if you spray the glue too heavy, it shows through the fabric with these little white dots. I also found out later that if you have a couple of little white dots, you can get rid of them by rubbing them out with a little bit of acetone, which I'll show you if we get to that point. Hopefully I don't run into that problem again. I want to make sure that I'm saving as much fabric as possible here. The other thing that I did was the first piece that I cut was for the C-pillar, and I cut it basically upside down, which didn't wind up being a problem. It was backwards to what I was looking for, so I just used it on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this with a fair amount of overhang so that I can wrap around the back. Now the lady at the fabric store, she called this material scuba material, which I think she actually means scuba diving material, like the scuba mat that wetsuits are made out of. And I'm not sure that's the case, but just for reference, this was in the outdoor material area. And the only thing with this material that I bought that I don't necessarily like is it has a little bit more sheen to it than the factory fabric does. But once I put it in the car with, I have super tinted windows, the black headliner, the sunroof closed, my windshield is tinted, the shine goes away pretty much. Now what we want to do is if you have any imperfections on here that you want to try to get rid of, you can try to sand them, buff them down, or what have you. I'm not being that picky here. Once the material goes on, it looks pretty good. So I want to relay my material so I know I can get a good wrap around the whole thing and feel all the corners. I can wrap around. And then what I'm doing is I'm laying a piece of plastic across so that I can fold over. And then as I'm spraying the back side here, I'm not getting any spray glue on the front side of the other side. So I'm keeping everything separated and safe that way. And one of the big things with this glue is you have to give it adequate tack time, which means you let it sit open air for 5 minutes or more. They say that it has at least an hour working time, but by letting both sides dry is actually what's going to allow them, there's a piece of hair in here. Maybe it's a beard hair, maybe it's a dog hair, I don't know. By allowing them to dry, you're going to allow them to tack together. That's how the glue actually works. What I found with this specific spray bottle is it doesn't necessarily aerosolize the glue. It comes out in these streaks, and you want to get back as far as possible to get it to spread out evenly. So I'm spraying on the part first, and you want to get glue everywhere you want to have some sort of adhesion. I'm getting this pretty glued up. You'll notice you've got all these bubbles building too. The very first part that I glued up, I left all those bubbles thinking that they were going to settle, and they didn't. So what I wound up doing was using this roller through the material to press those bubbles out, and it came out pretty smooth. But what I'm doing now instead is I'm pressing the bubbles out before I tack. Now to get the other side here, let's see. I'm gonna back up and I'm gonna try to get little tiny streaks on there because I don't want it to go through the material and cause those stains that I'd mentioned before. And just that little bit of streaking, I'm finding is giving me really good adhesion. So now I clean the tip and I wait. Got 9:38, so I'm gonna give it 5 minutes from now. I'll come back to it. Okay, so I've given it about 5 minutes to start to tack and dry up. I can touch the glue on the table without it sticking to my hand. Now what I want to do is I want to address all these big air bubbles before I try to put the fabric on. And by addressing them first, I'm not going to have as much of an issue afterwards. So what I'm just going to do is I'm rolling them out with this roller. You can see it's not sticking at all. And I'm popping all the little bubbles. This is going to give me a much smoother finish when I'm done, that I don't have to work as hard. This is my first time doing this, so I'm going to say this is a what I'm doing more than a how-to, but if any of these tips work for you, drop down into the comments and let me know, hey, that really helped. All right, so those are all bubbled out. This fabric has stretch in one direction. Ooh, I got some bleed through there. We'll see if we can take care of that before we wrap the other side. So what I'm trying to do is stretch it out to get all the bubbles out of the fabric down the middle, and then I'll lay it out the side. And you can pull this back. And I've seen guys, they use another piece of fabric to rub this out. I'm just using my fingers here. I mean, you can always rub it out with your fingers. It works just fine.
What? You can't say that!
Beautiful, all the way around. Got some bubbles there I want to rub through. Squeeze out the fabric. Okay, so now these spots where I got the glue a little heavy. Here's what I was finding. A little bit of acetone. And then rub into those spots and it draws the glue through. At least this is what I imagine is happening. And then I can just wipe those spots away. It does look kind of discolored for a second. And then as soon as the acetone evaporates out, then we're pretty good. Hopefully it's not so thick that I can't fix this and that I have to cut a new piece of material. But that's one of the things you're gonna have to deal with, is figuring out these types of issues. Okay, we've had adequate dry time over here. Everything can be touched. Time to pop our bubbles. All right, I went ahead and sprayed some glue on the back side here. I'm gonna start at the top. Just try to get this side wrapped in tight here. This is the side that tends to peel more often. This is the windshield side that's gonna be visible. So I really want that stuck in there nice. Now for our top corner up here, we're just going to drop the razor blade down in there, open it up. That's going to give us room to tuck it in, and then we'll squeeze our little tab in place to lock everything in place for good. And it comes out the back side to lock in underneath. And then once we get the screw in there, we'll be even more solid. For the B-pillar, we got to get the piece out of the back here. What I found works the best is slide it forward, and then right up at the top here, if you peel it up over that stopper, you can go forward over the stop. Actually, we want to go the other way, which gives it enough room to get off of the bottom here. We'll go out of the stop on the bottom, and then it'll pop right out the bottom there. Now this piece is not supposed to be wrapped. It's got a ton of glue on it. Because I'm using a little bit of mineral spirits first, because acetone is pretty hard on the plastic. The mineral spirits will help break up the glue. If you have Goo Gone or any type of a glue remover, you could use that. If you have a plastic credit card, plastic scraper, tool, this would be a great spot for that. Scrape all this goo off. I'm just gonna waste this towel. Okie dokie. Now I can switch over to acetone or alcohol to prep these for paint. And yes, much like you, I have a high-tech paint booth the side of my house, top of my trash can. As long as the wind doesn't blow too hard down here, it works great. Okay, leave that outside to bake. We'll come back for it later. Now to wrap the B pillar and the C pillar, I'm gonna go ahead and throw you on a time lapse because it's essentially the same thing. And there aren't too many tricks here. These are sort of complex, but with this material, this is the old stuff, having just a little bit of give to it, I can get it to form around there pretty well. The most important part is on your B pillar and your C pillar there, where you have these openings, is to get enough material on the inside that it's going to be able to hold in place and not peel back out. Mine is peeling on a bunch of the short sections. So let's get these guys hammered out. During my learning curve here with this process, what I found was it was actually a little bit easier on these small pieces to glue up the whole section instead of trying to do half at a time, then work myself to the backside. I've got all that tape there to protect the backside from getting extra glue on it because that slider does need to slide in there and I didn't want to have to fight with that glue. Well, that really wasn't all that bad. I did learn a couple of lessons. One, I ran out of glue. Thankfully, I had enough glue to get both sides covered and just enough super glue for a couple little touch-ups on the side. So now what I need to do is I need to get these back in the car, and then you can see what it looks like with my new M Sport headliner in 3, 2, 1. Well, what do you think? Did it come out the way that you thought? Did it come out terrible? I actually really like it. I've been driving the car around for a few weeks, getting the feel of the steering wheel, getting the feel of the look inside. It is very dark with limo tinted windows all the way around, the sunroof closed. Here in Phoenix, it's actually quite lovely. But it's exactly what I was going for. So it was a pretty busy 2 videos as far as projects on the car. We got the sunroof rebuilt and operational. We got the new steering wheel in. We got the headliner trim and all the accoutrements installed in the car. I only have one other thing on the interior to complete a full M Sport swap, and that would be to replace my door sill plates. They currently say BMW, and the M Sport ones just said M on them, and the M5 ones said M5. I have a good set of M5 door sill plates in my M5, but I'm gonna keep them there for now. This was a bit of an expensive swap to get all of this taken care of. And I imagine that many of you will not think that this was a prudent choice for funds. Much like my wife and most people that I know.
I'm an idiot.
I can't exactly disagree with you on that, but it's what's done. The headliner I picked up at a junkyard. I got super duper lucky on that, 75 bucks. All of the little trim pieces and the handles and the sun visors and all that stuff I picked up out of Europe because from what I'm finding, in Europe the wagons all had black headliners, so it's kind of like an M Sport. So I picked up a touring or a wagon kit. The parts didn't all line up, but I got most of what I needed, so the handles and the clips and little things was $332.10 shipped. My sunroof parts were $88.86 to fix the sunroof. The steering wheel was the most expensive upgrade, $507.40. And then the sunroof motors, those two that I picked up at the junkyard to make one good motor, $56.94. The fabric, the glue, and all the little things to get the pillars rewrapped were about $65. And that puts us at a total of $1125.30. And it brings our grand total spent on this car so far, including purchase price, to $11,060.12.
How is this even possible?
Now remember, I paid $4,000 for this car. So you can see it's taken quite a bit of investment to get it to this level. And I actually feel like there's a long way to go still, seeing how I'm looking at the headlights right now. I have one failed adjuster, and I know that I'd like to upgrade the headlights with a set of Evo X projectors and new lenses, and there's all sorts of things to do. So this project is probably going to live on for a bit longer, so long as my wife doesn't cut me off from the bank accounts. Who knows how that'll go. Anyhow, I really appreciate you watching. Just like, subscribe, comment. Let me know down below what you think I should do next. I'm considering a radio upgrade. I currently have the business CD, and the previous owner or owners or somewhere in between has modified it to allow an aux input, which is fantastic. I'd like an aftermarket, say, Enon radio. They make a really nice looking head unit that resembles the factory 16x9 nav. And then with that, I'd have an output to go to a set of subs in the trunk, which I would also like to do. I did all of these things on the M5 many years ago and was very happy with it, but I'm still trying to wrap through all the other stuff. All that to be said, I look forward to seeing you right back here in the shop on the next one.